Noted in the minutes. Your Worship. 11:30, okay. Okay, on council business, okay. Someone like to move in second? Councillor Gould, Mr Martin, all those in favour, please say aye. Against, carried. Are there any declarations of, firstly I need to do our housekeeping. I've declared the meeting open and welcomed everyone. Don't forget the meeting is live streamed and the public can see exactly what you're doing and what you're saying if you leave your microphones on. Also, mobile phones, turn them off and store them away during the meeting. We will take a break at about 11 o'clock if you need to have ablutions and to check your emails, etc. It's been moved and seconded. All those in favour, please say aye. Against, carried. Are there any declarations of interest as per the Local Government Act? No. Are there any items of urgent business? Councillor Gould, who's advised me prior to the meeting, he has an item of urgent business. Councillor Gould.
Thank you, Mr Chair. Request a Manukau Infrastructure Plan Review report at the next meeting, please.
Okay. Yes, there's been considerable community discussion regarding what's happening at Manukau. I understood we were annually spending a considerable amount of money up there. Only 3 months ago we put new curbing and channelling in one of the streets by the playground. So Stavros, if you are quite happy to bring that forward in terms of what we've done to date and what we've got in the LTP in terms of where we're heading with Manukau? Yes. Or the meeting after, whichever. It depends on his workload.
Bring it up today. He can talk to that.
He can talk to it today? Okay, cool. Okay, so he's going to talk to it today, but you would like to know where we're heading with Manukau. He'll talk about it today. If there is a need for a report, I'm sure you'll highlight that to us. Thank you. Are there any other items of late business? And I appreciate, Councillor Gould, you mentioning to me prior to the meeting you had this item coming forward. I read that helps the running of the meeting very smoothly. We'll move to the minutes of the Operation and Monitoring Committee held on the 6th of September. That's on page 8 of your agendas. Would someone like to move that the minutes of the Operations and Monitoring Committee meeting held on the 6th of September 2018 be confirmed as a true and correct record? Councillor Gould, Deputy Mayor Donaldson, all those in favour, please say aye. Against? Yeah, I'm going to bring up matters arising. All those in favour, please say aye. Against, carried. Matters arising. Councillor Rotorua Tate, welcome.
Yes, thank you, and excuse me for my brief lateness, Mr Chair. Mr Chair, when it's on page 9, there's something that I see that I find somewhat disconcerting. And it's, under 5, and it's attendance there, that Councillor Bentley left the meeting, I think it was for 3 minutes. Now look, I presume that was a bathroom, I don't know, a bathroom stop. Are we going to be clocked in and out when we go to the bathroom? Because I don't know why that's there. It's the first time I've ever seen a 3-minute absence noted in the minutes. So,
yep.
I don't mean to be rude, Councillor Bentley, but I just thought that and I thought, well, hell, I go certainly longer than 3 minutes. So that's just something I didn't like to see.
It has been noted, Councillor.
Oh, thank you.
And Una, Councillor Tapsell and I mentioned it in our run-through meeting, and Una's going to attend to it.
Thank you.
If you leave the meeting permanently, yes, that should
absolutely
be noted, but just to go in and out for ablutions, etc., that's...
Mr Chair, can I speak to that?
Yes, Councillor Donaldson.
Thank you, through you. I just wonder whether or not that can be a significance matter to record. And the reason I raise that is because I was tackled by the media for voting records in respect to the long-term plan. And the minutes, I furnished the media with the link to the minutes of the meeting of the 28th of June, which showed that one councillor stepped out of the room and returned over a 3-minute period, but during that 3-minute period, council voted to adopt the long-term plan. So they were interested in who did vote for the long-term plan and who voted against it. And so the minutes are a record of who is in attendance when significant decisions are made of council, and I just wonder whether it is or isn't important that that is recorded in the minutes.
Councillor Rotorua, you raised the issue. You take on board what
Yes,
Councillor Donaldson?
no, I don't agree with that at all. There might be occasions when somebody does, leave and it can be noted that perhaps he wasn't here during that, if a division or, a vote was taken, but certainly I find this is, it's not a good look.
Councillor Tapsell?
Perhaps if we could just get some clarification from the democracy team, because I do recall reading at some stage that you're allowed a 5-minute grace to be able to use the bathroom. I believe that is if you're absent from the meeting for more than 5 minutes, then it will be recorded, and I think there's potentially what Councillor Rotorua is feeling disconcerted about it as well, because sometimes we do need to have a quick break, and I think that it would be fair and equitable to be able to record the minutes consistently throughout our process. So perhaps some advice on if it is under 5 minutes or not.
Good morning, everyone. So standard practice is 5 minutes. So if you are absent without having spoken to the chair prior to that for a period of 5 minutes or more, we would record that as an absence. Unfortunately, in this case, we have made an error in recording that, and we do apologise for that.
Okay, I don't think we need any further help regarding that. The point's been made. Thank you, Councillor Rotorua. Democracy team will take that on board. Are there any other matters in the minutes that anyone wishes to raise? It appears to be not. Thank you very much. We'll move now to page 12 of your agenda, and we move straight into staff reports, and we'll ask Mr. Colley to come forward. He's going to give our financial performance for the 2 months ended the 31st of August. And would someone like to move that the report titled Financial no, we'll do that after he gives it to us, because I think that's important. Mr. Colley has some overheads, and we'll take questions at the end of his report. Welcome, Thomas.
Thank you, Chair, and good morning, councillors and board members. Unfortunately, for the first time, I don't have a presentation, so I'll just briefly, I know you're shocked, Chair, but I'll just briefly go through. So this is the 2-month result for the new financial year. So pleasingly, there is a small surplus on the back of higher revenues, but also higher costs that are offsetting each other. The higher revenues as a result of some revenue streams such as rates being ahead of budget, but also the reflection of the MB funding with regards to the business casing, and that's also reflected in the additional costs with regards to the work for the business casing for the lakefront and the Waka Forest. Everything else is close to budget or tracking well. So at this time there are no adverse trends appearing or that I need to bring to your attention. So that's from the operating perspective. From the capital perspective, expenditure is down slightly against budget, and that's just a reflection of the timing of where we sat in the year. Obviously the 2 months reflects winter, and we don't do a lot of roadworks or digging up and replacing infrastructure such as stormwater networks or water mains and those sorts of things. And as the weather warms up, the expenditure will increase accordingly. So, any questions?
Councillor Kent.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Through you. Thank you for your report, Thomas. You mentioned that part of the reason for the increased expenditure is offset by subsidies and grants, but we're only 278,000 ahead on subsidies and grants, yet we're 790,000 in deficit in 2 months for operating expenditure. So that's $500,000, even if you've taken off the extra coming in from subsidies and grants. Why have we blown out $500,000 in operating expenses after the subsidies and grants in 2 months? That is my question.
Questioning the operating expenses line in the expenditure column. Mr. Colley?
Look, there's no need to be alarmed, and I think there's no reason to use words such as blowouts. I think it's a reflection of that we are 2 months into the financial year. We do phase our budgets on how we anticipate our spend, but obviously sometimes those budgets are not, that phasing is obviously not 100% accurate when we phase the budgets because we don't know how the year will progress. Ultimately, the expenditure that has been incurred has been expected. There'll be some timing issues with regards to 1 month or the other, but 2 months in, I think it's a bit premature to use the words such as blowouts and those as such.
Can I just ask, Thomas, I'll come back to you, Councillor Kent. So in those 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 lines in the expenditure, your answer to that, to Councillor Kent's question, could be applied to each of those in terms of timing. Probably the one that wouldn't would be staff expenses, because you've explained that appointments haven't been made and there's vacancies. But those other areas could be timing issues, are they?
Oh yes, look, we do our best endeavours to phase our budgets of how we anticipate our spend will be done. We obviously don't just take our budget and divide it by 1/12 and expect to spend 1/12 every month. So we take into account seasonalities and what happens in individual areas. But there is a level of precision that obviously we can't achieve unless we throw an absolute huge amount of resource at it, and so you therefore have to accept that from month to month there will be ups and downs, and the key is that if this is a trend that continues going forward, then we would have cause for alarm. But at the moment, what I'm saying to you is that, as I said in my opening, that there are no adverse trends that we see that we should be concerned about.
Thank you. So if this is just a timing issue, then we can expect to see this improving next month?
That is one option that could happen, but also we could have something else come up which could mean the opposite.
How many months do we actually go before we decide it's a blowout and not just ups and downs?
I think, Councillor, is what we do is we actually look at what is driving it, and the report has highlighted to you what is driving the expenditure. So at the moment, there is no unusual over-the-top expenditure that we are seeing that we believe you should be concerned about.
Your Worship, the Mayor?
In the chair, there's a very odd statement made in the release about a petition that I'm sure we're discussing later. But it states here, and it's one of our councillors actually, that said we upgraded the lakefront 28 years ago in infrastructure and stormwater, and that bill of 27 million has yet to be paid off. Could you just sort of answer the validity of that statement? Because we don't get a chance to get the financial officer here. It's stated.
Seek clarification. Where did you get the figure of 27 million?
It's from the press release of RDR saying that, you know, we've got a debt of 27 million that we're yet to pay off, and so why are we investing more? Could you just
Mr. Chairman?
In point of order?
This has nothing to do with the financial performance for 2 months ending 31st of August, and should actually be raised as a separate issue if required.
Well, I definitely will.
I tend to agree with you, Councillor Kent. I think this, if you don't mind, Your Worship, if you'd like to bring that up.
But we won't have the financial officer sitting here. That's my point.
Well, he'll be behind us. Yep.
Good.
But I think Thomas saved that answer up because it'll have to be a right doozy. So if you need to go and do some research into the 27 million, that'll be
Sorry,
good.
Chair, I'm not too sure what petition you're referring to. So
that's a
may have to
relevant
point that
petition.
to
If
me.
someone's made a claim that we still owe $27 million on infrastructure spend at the lakefront, can you just check that out in answer to the Mayor's question?
Will do.
Councillor Donaldson?
Thank you, Mr Chair. Through you, my question's regarding the rates revenue being ahead of budget. Is that a trend that we think is likely to continue, or is that just an indication that in the first quarter people have elected to pay the full year? Can you give us a guide there, Thomas?
No, so that is an indication that our total rates revenue for the year will end the year above budget. So it's generally in the first quarter reflective of probably where the total of more than what we expect to collect for the year, but then as the year goes by with regards to making subtle changes and remissions and those sorts of things, it'll creep likely back down, or it'll fluctuate around that area. But that is an indication that yes, we have collected more rates than we anticipated, and that is a reflection of the fact that when we did our rates modelling, we modelled it on the underlying property data that we had, and then when we applied those models and those factors to the actual data, that increase in rates is a reflection of the growth that happened between the data set that we modelled and the data and the actuals of how we actually struck it.
Councillor
Supplementary thinking through you, Mr Chair. So that you're saying that's a reflection of growth in the rating database in the number of rateable properties?
Predominantly, yes.
Thank you.
Councillor Bentley?
Thank you, Chair. Just with regard to page 13, the higher operating costs relating to geotech reports, just the people supplying that geotech report, are they the same people that did the geotech report on Western Road?
No.
Councillor Gould? The answer was no. Thank you. Councillor Gould?
Correct.
Thank you, Mr Chair. Thank you, Thomas, for your report today. With your comments earlier in the meeting when you answered Councillor Kent, when you put over top expensives we can see, does that mean your budget, which you set last year, was wrong? Because on your expenditure on today's report, you got 5 out of 6 was showing a deficit, sir.
Thank you for that scorecard, Councillor. Look, one of the main factors of what is causing that over expenditure is what you call it, is obviously when we set our budgets, we hadn't got approval from MB to do the business case work which they've helped fund with regards to the Waka Forest and the lakefront. So therefore, as we apply our budgets this year and spend in anticipation of the normal things we do, that activity, which totals $800,000 in total, wasn't anticipated, wasn't reflected in our budgets, and will therefore show at a line level as an overspend against an expense line. Just as I said, please offset it with the additional revenue that we will get and receive it. The other one, Councillor, is there is a timing issue, obviously, Councillor Kent, between how we spend it and when we claim it. And so we do claim not at the end of the month, but milestone based. So at the end of August, there was a further claim made in the middle to late September, which obviously recoups some of the money back relating into this financial period as well. So we won't see a clear match revenue against that additional expenditure until that project has been completed.
Councillor Gould?
Mr Chair, concerning revenue, on page 12, you've got investment income, you've got the budget of 127,000 and you've got actual of 23,000. Certainly we've taken some money out of the investment side to pay somewhere else, or does that mean you've done something else?
So, Councillor, I thought I'd explain in the report that relates to the interest recovered from the airport company. So, as you know, we hold the debt on behalf of the airport company, and we on-charge that interest cost at regular intervals. And that line item, the difference there reflects the fact that we haven't yet charged them this year for their portion of interest yet. And so when we do undertake that line item will come back on budget.
I have a question and comment, Thomas. I'm really concerned on page 13 that if our budgeted electricity usage costs are unfavourable by $43,000 over budget at the end of August, what on earth is happening in our community? There are horror stories out there where people cannot even afford to turn the heater on, or are cutting back on use of electricity. So that's indicating nearly $500,000 overspend for, if that's extended through for the whole year. So I just wondered whether, what can we do? Your Worship, we advocate for our community in many other areas, but this is a budgeted item that most households, and I know businesses also are struggling to find that extra resource to pay these huge electricity prices. So is this a trend you expect to continue, Thomas?
So Councillor, I've highlighted it because it was an issue last year. So at the moment we're not too concerned about $43,000, bearing in mind that it's a budget that's been phased across the year. The total spend is well over $1 million for the year, so it will hopefully resolve itself. If we look at where the current pricing and trending is, we are comfortable in saying that we don't know what's going to occur around the corner with regards to we could potentially have an extremely dry summer down south. The hydro catchments could reduce, which could therefore expose us to additional costs. But at the moment, we're relatively comfortable with that level of variance against actually our total spend. And so it's well within the realms of acceptability at this stage. Yeah, but because it was an issue last year, we felt that we would just highlight that at the moment.
Excellent, thank you, Thomas. So, Mr. CEO, you would like to make a comment on the financial side of things?
Councillors, one of the issues I think that you're starting to see in this report and that you're picking up on is that we're entering a very business unusual phase. So what we have is a number, I think, if we count them, we've got the forest project, the lakefront project, we've got the out of the forest project with the sewage treatment project, we've got, that's right, the Waipa work, Rotorua, Howard Morrison Performing Arts Centre, the museum and so on. All of these projects are multi-million-dollar, very large projects. For some of them, a few of them, the minority in fact, council is actually the majority funder. But for some of them equally, council is the minority funder. So not only are the projects very large, but they're also complex with regards to funding, who's funding them, when funding will be received. One of the things I think we need to have a discussion of within the executive is how do we report to you in a way that gives you confidence that we're proceeding in a business as usual way, but somehow or other remove some of the volatility that's going to be evident as a result or as an effect of these very large projects. So that's something we'll come back to you on, and in terms of how do we report over the next 2 years as to a picture for you that gives you confidence on our business as usual activity as opposed to the impact of these large variances.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just had a question along the lines of your one regarding electricity, and it's about the usage being unfavourable, Thomas. And can that be explained by the fact that we have tradies in here for the last, I don't know how long, working full-time with power tools, etc., doing the upgrade of this building, and also some of the pumping with the wet period that we've had with pumping wastewater, or can you shed any light on that?
The majority of it will relate to pumping, in particular around stormwater and sewage. Yep, that's where the bulk of that variance will sit. Yep.
Okay, I'll have to read that again, sorry, thanks Ian. That the operational report for August to September 2018 be received. Move Councillor Hunt, seconded Councillor Kawate. All those in favour please say aye. Against, carried. Our first one up today is the Kaiwhakahaere Māori, Monty Morrison. I understand Jean is on leave. And welcome Monty, if you'd like to highlight any of the issues
Thank you, Mr Chairman.
the division is handling.
Thank you, and morena tata. Look, the report is taken as read, and just as you said, Gina apologises for being away this week. But look, just a couple of things to highlight. Of course, the activities around Te Wiki o Te Reo Māori, the fact that we based it not only here but in Te Aka Māori, and it brought, it was, from our point of view, hugely successful and a great participation throughout the community for the activities. Gina wanted also to ensure that councils understood the process of consultation that we're taking through the Te Aomarangi team, involving all those partners any partners who have an interest in the projects that you've already heard about, and in particular the ones which are highlighted in the report. And then the third one was that you heard last time when she was here, she spoke of the noho which happened. That was last month, and another very successful noho and very enthused and from our staff who were there. So that work continues. The next noho marae I think is scheduled for November. So thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm happy to take any questions and answer as best I can.
Monty, leading up to, so obviously we're going to get some questions regarding the lakefront and the redwoods. Could you just highlight to me, and because there's a lot of people out there in the community who are really keenly interested in these two projects, about the level of consultation that went on? So from our point of view as council, it's been at a lot of levels. It's making sure that not only the hapu are being consulted, but also those, of course, in particular in the lakefront, the Ohunamatu village as a particular group has been consulted as well, and that's still ongoing. So Gina has been meeting with them regularly, and including visiting the village and doing walkabouts with those who with their members to ensure that the impact that we're doing in the development that we're doing around the lakefront is fully explained, and they understand, if you like, the impacts that the increased numbers of people that's going to be resulting as a result of this development is, that they're informed. But that's still ongoing.
Thank you for the report, Monty. Can you assure us that there's been no insensitivity shown by council to the culturally sensitive sites on the lakefront and in particular?
Look, can I just say from our point of view, we've made every effort to ensure that if there were any issues or any concerns, and Gina has spent a lot of time with the Te Aomarangi team explaining and attending meetings and attending groups and making herself available at any time to be able to explain how well the information is being received and reacted to. We just have to wait. But certainly the willingness and the commitment is there for us as, and the full Te Aomarangi team to be able to assist in getting our messages to ensure that they're fully consulted.
Thank you.
Councillor Kent.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Through you. We've heard that iwi have been consulted concerning the lakefront. When is the general public going to be consulted about the lakefront? And I don't mean the lakefront reserve plan, I mean the actual lakefront development.
Okay, the Kai Whakahaere report at this stage. Can you leave that question to later? Councillor Kent, please. Okay. Any other questions of Mr. Morrison? It appears to me. Thank you very, very much, Monty. We'll now go to the strategy group, which is the lady next door to us, me. And in this, we're going to have the lakefront and Whakarewa development presentation. Welcome, Una.
Good morning.
Good
morning, everybody. So today I'm standing in for JP Gaston, who is on leave. Just covering off the strategy group in your report on page 17 to 19. I am going to take this report as read because, as you see, just coming to the table now, we have Portia McKenzie and Michael Hancock from the strategy team, and they're going to lead us on a bit of a presentation around the lakefront and Waka Forest, following the announcement from the PGF fund, which occurred on the 24th of September. September. Just want to highlight one rather major thing which is written in your report, and that's just around the $19.9 million grant for the lakefront, and just to single out that this is the single largest individual project allocation from this fund to date. So that's something pretty special for our district. And I'm going to leave it there and let Portia and Michael take us on the journey of where we've come from and where we're heading to with these two great projects. So thank you, team.
Welcome, Portia. Welcome, Michael. Look forward to your presentation.
Kia ora tātou. Ngā mihi kia tātou ko whakawhai te rangi nei. So thank you, Chair, for giving us the opportunity to do this presentation. We thought we might first start with a video of the announcement last week and some of the collateral that's been put together to support that.
I'm proud that today's announcement will have a significant, I have to say huge impact on the Rotorua that my moko will grow up in. I'm heartened that government has recognised the journey that we're on and the opportunity to lift our city and our district in terms of its economy and jobs for our young people. What is clear to me is that to create a prosperous city and a district, we need to collaborate. We must work together. Like the boardwalk states, ngā te mahi tahi ka tutoki. Working together, we will succeed. Tātou, tātou.
It is with great pleasure that I am pleased to announce today that the Provincial Growth Fund will invest $27.4 million to redevelop the Rotorua lakefront and the Whakarewa forest. The investment is made up of $19.9 million towards the redevelopment of the Rotorua lakefront, matching the $20.1 million investment from the Rotorua Lakes Council, and $7.5 million investment towards the redevelopment or the development of the Whakarewa forest, matching the $7.5 million investment by the Rotorua Lakes Council. I think that deserves it.
We are preparing for the next chapter of our 2030 vision, with projects known as the Big Moves. The development of the Rotorua lakefront will bind the lake with the land, the past with the present, and the physical with the unseen. We will pay tribute to our collective histories and honour the intrinsic beauty of our place. Rotorua nui a kahu matamomoe, o Rotorua, each element celebrating the connection of our people, our place and our past. A binding of history reflecting the prestige of nature and providing a platform for connecting communities and welcoming manuhi. Hoki mai e tai e ki te aukaha o te harawa. Ka nui te taonga e. Ka hoki mai ki te iwi ngā. With the development of Tokorangi Whakarewarewa, we will honour iwi connection to the forest and the histories of the governing entity, Tāne, son of Ranginui and Papa Tuanuku. Our mahi will draw inspiration from the past, so we can enable this much-loved asset for the future. Visitors will become aware of the special embrace of Tāne Whakapiripiri and the power of Tokorangi and Whakarewarewa, as mana whenua welcome you into this domain. Koine tō tātou kāinga, ko tātou o Imatārangata. The first steps toward our vision is underway. This is the start of a momentous journey. This is our home. We are its people.
As I was sitting there watching what was going on, I wondered and thought how Tara was perhaps the most renowned orator of all time, Kepehe, what he would be saying if he were with us. Because he was one that said we should pursue the wisdom of knowledge so that our efforts and achievements may be the springboard for future generations to thrive and prosper. This consideration by government is going to allow future generations, our children, our Makapu, to gain the benefit.
I'm so thrilled with the funding announcement today. This allows us to progress the lakefront development, in particular for me. And I think that the most significant thing is that we hear talk of livable cities, and exactly that's what this is becoming for us. We are a livable city. Our lakefront is one of the last pieces to put in place to turn our city into a world-class destination. So I'm thrilled to bits. I love the fact that it's the beginning, and as we move into the Rotorua forest, that's the other bit of the bookend, because we know our locals particularly, and of course our tourists as well, are enjoying all the things Rotorua has to offer, both the passive and the active.
These projects will create opportunities that show that we come together as a community, for business, for government, with iwi, we can achieve great things. We're looking forward to being part of that story and working together to achieve great outcomes.
We're now looking at a total investment of 53 million across two projects, both from central and local government. So I think we're poised on the cusp of something really special for Rotorua.
It's an opportunity for the community to be a part of the development of the new forest. Rotorua has been the home of Ngāti Whakauru for some time, and I think it's just amazing that they get to be part of the development of new infrastructure and the opportunities that come from it.
We've known that we need to invest, but you couldn't ask ratepayers to fund that alone. And so the Provincial Growth Fund has given us the opportunity to get a wonderful aspirational plan there, and now it will happen. And the forestry for us was about sustainability. If we actually killed the goose that lays the golden egg for us in terms of recreation and tourism activity, then we wouldn't have that asset to make us such an incredible destination and place for our locals.
Hilda, you able to bring up the... Kia ora tātou. So before going into our presentation, we thought it might be good to sort of reflect on how we've got to this point here, and also I suppose the key cogs that are within these projects moving forward. So starting back at this point here, sorry, pointing both sides, really just reflecting on the initial grant that we received from the PGF, and the assistance that it provides us in order to accelerate developing business cases for both projects. But also, I suppose, acknowledging these two projects we're at a point where we could take it through to detailed design with a view of moving forward as quickly as possible. And the support from the PGF really assisted us in getting to where we got to in terms of the second cog around the announcement last Monday. And I suppose without the support from the PGF, it's likely that this would have taken a lot longer for us to get to this point here. And just explaining the way the cogs work a little bit as well, I suppose it was acknowledging that with the PGF and the council's funding, along with support from our EU partners and wider community in terms of private investment as well, just getting really excited about the opportunities there. Part of today, we're going to look at what the initial stages for us are in terms of timing for these two projects, and really, I suppose, looking at the key outcomes and the purpose for these projects. We were looking at the economic growth, social outcomes, which are not mutually exclusive when talking about the PGF, and how we look to achieve those through these two projects. Cool. So first step, I suppose, is just to just recap on the PGF itself, and I understand that JP outlined this to our winning committee a couple of months ago. And with these two projects, I suppose it's just looking at when the PGF was announced. The Rotorua, or Bay of Plenty region, was announced as a surge region with the opportunity for early investment. looking also back at the priority areas and the key criteria. And these two specific projects in terms of feedback from MP hit every single mark, which is a key sort of reason why, coupled with the progress that had been made against them, we were essentially ready to go in terms of being first cab off the rank. Also, as part of supporting our application up, is these two projects were included as the priorities for Rotorua and the Bay of Plenty Visitor Economy Strategy. So really, I suppose, highlighting the significance and allowing them to be put forward as first cab off the rank, acknowledging still that there are other projects that need to be done as well. So today I'll be giving an overview of the Tokorangi and Whakareurua forest development, and Portia will cover off the lakefront. So the Whakareurua and Tokorangi forest development project actually has four key components. The first component is looking at our Tokorangi or Long Mile hub. The key, I suppose, to this particular area is really about improving the public infrastructure in the area, and what we're looking at firstly is around safety improvements to the entrance of Long Mile Road off Rotorua Road. Currently it's real difficult to turn right if you're coming out of there, and also it can get a bit narrow if you're coming in from Rotorua Road, turning left in there as well. So a key part of this project is looking at that entrance and ensuring it's brought up in terms of safety and just making it a bit better experience in terms of trying to get into and out of Long Mile Road. A key part, and I think touching on what other Multi touched on in his video, is looking at the ways we can assist mana whenua to highlight the cultural importance and cultural significance of these areas as well. And really, I suppose, acknowledging that they are they're destinations in their own right, but there is a really rich cultural story that could be told better. And there's ways in which, through these designs, through these developments, that we can help that story be told. And then the others are really looking at, so a key component really is looking at improving and increasing the amount of sealed parking, formalising a lot of the stormwater management. Currently when it rains heavily, you end up with mud patches on both sides of Long Mile Road. So it's really addressing those. And a shared path also that goes all the way down Long Mile Road, which will help form part of the new CBD loop forest trail that's also part of this project. And a turnaround zone down towards Nursery Hill, so you're able to turn around and come back if needed. And at the moment we're looking at this particular area being the first cab off the rank, hopefully beginning construction in February 2019. Okay, so the second component is Rotorua Road Forest Hub. That name is a placeholder at this stage. We'll let everybody know once we come up with a name with mana whenua. But for those that don't know where this area is, it's just past Kauriko Loop Road, and it's the forestry entrance on the right. It's a place that locals call the Black House. It's quite popular with locals, and it's named that because of the Black House that's directly across the road. So that's just the orientation of where this area is. The purpose for this area is really establishing another forest hub entrance into the forest itself, but also creating new event space which acknowledges some of the pressures that are put on the other hubs around the forest in terms of event space and everything else. There again is creating safety improvements around the entrance, so that particular road gets fairly narrow, so we need to improve that in terms of ensuring that turning in and out could be improved. Taking the YPAR model, we're looking at, I suppose, establishing the public infrastructure in terms of toilets, showers, and bike wash station as well, and creating this as another place to be used. The staging of car parking, really, I suppose what we're looking at doing is starting with 100 sealed parks, with the opportunity to move to 470 depending on growth within this area and mountain biking in general, which is what we're expecting through these sorts of developments. Creation of begin the bike trail, future expansion to intermediate level skill zone. So the forest loop which is proposed as part of this trail as well will come through this area, and there's opportunities to create areas for as a kids zone and everything else as well. All going well, we hope to begin construction in February 2019 as well, but this will be subject to the process that needs to be taken in terms of the resource consent and acknowledging, I suppose, the amount of earthworks that need to be done in this area. So if the consent takes a little longer than we expect, then it's likely that it'll be deferred to the next summer, because you can't do earthworks after May. Okay, so the third component is the visitor centre and play space. So what this acknowledges, I suppose, is that the current visitor centre doesn't meet the needs of 470 plus visitors that annually visit that site. And along with upgrading the visitor centre is also looking at, it's around there, yeah, and looking at the creating, I suppose, a public natural play space with picnic areas for families as well, to better using that space and using some of the gap in the canopy that provides sunlight into this area. And really, there again, it's about providing the infrastructure that can help support future activities such as a cafe or a restaurant, depending on, I suppose, the demand in the area and how it might come. So it's best providing enabling infrastructure. A part of this too, I suppose, and along my road is putting dedicated coach parking and additional car parking. So we expect the amount of car parks to increase over the space for more car parks. This is said to be a 2-year program in terms of what we've projected out, and we have begun concept design this month with appointing estimates to do some of that work in terms of the initial master planning. Okay, so the fourth component is looking at a trail expansion. So we're talking about two separate loops. First one is a loop which connects the hubs around the Rotorua forest. And what both loops do provide opportunities to tell stories of significance, and it's thinking of innovative ways in terms of doing this, whether it's interpretive technology or signage. It's really looking at other additional ways that the stories could be told. Enhancing the CBD loop, so part of the funding in here is about connecting some of the already formed trails and improving them to be able to connect our ring of reserves, Credo Park through to lakefront development, back through Sanatorium to the Rotorua forest and back again. So just creating another experience in that way. So in terms of the timing, the forestry loop has started. It was aimed to try and get this completed by early to mid next year, and the CBD loop itself will be synchronised with the timing of the lakefront development to ensure that all the work's sort of done before we create that piece. Okay, this slide here is just really to acknowledge the fact that it's through the support of the Provincial Growth Fund and along with council support that we were able to get this off the ground. But tātou too, in terms of the help with our partners in our community, people that we have engaged with, and being able to develop these projects and get them across the line in terms of the PGF business case application.
Thank you, Michael. While Portia's collecting her thoughts in her presentation, what I thought I'd do is that we'll get the Tokorangi and Whakarewa forest development concept out of the way first. So if you've got any questions you want regarding that, and whilst you're thinking of those, Michael, the funding, the 7.5 million from the Provincial Growth Fund and Council's signal in the long-term plan, that's all in place, so we can start construction in February next year.
So there is another period, I think it was outlined in the report, where we need to negotiate the next contract with the NB. We're hoping that could get out of the way in the next couple of months in terms of getting those formalised. And then from there we should be able to start early next year.
Just one question regarding the redwoods. Weddings will still be able to be held there? This will not knock that possibility out with the commercialisation?
No, so I suppose what we're proposing through the visitor centre and that particular precinct is actually enhancing the value proposition there, creating better links back in towards the sales. And I suppose if there is an opportunity for hospitality or food and beverage in the future, that in itself should probably enhance that value proposition.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, through you. I'm concerned about the entrance into Longmire Road, particularly with the impact that and issues that we had with turning right into the Redwood Centre coming from Tarawera roundabout. what studies have been done with respect to the increased traffic that's going to be coming from all the employees that are now going to be using Long Mile as their entrance to Sion, whereas before it was the other end. I see tailbacks from trying to turn right there, going right back to the roundabout, causing a massive traffic jam in the beginning of working hours, and I don't see any provision of a right turn lane or anything else on Rotorua Road, and I would have thought that was an absolute essential.
I think we'll ask Stavros to make comment regarding this, because I think Michael and Portia are involved with the design concepts. Stavros?
Through you, Mr. Chair, good morning. Obviously, what you've seen on the board there is a concept design. Behind that concept design, we did detailed design, which includes traffic management, traffic safety components. The traffic modeling would be a requirement of that design, and I would anticipate that the traffic volumes, peak time demand, and off-peak time demand will be assessed. And again, remember that over the next few months, you will see the roundabout in Tarawera being converted into a signalized intersection. Also, you have development near the shopping centre opposite Tinai Centre that needs to take into consideration. So it will be a comprehensive traffic modelling encompassing the Tarawera intersection, the shops opposite Tinai Centre, and the entrance to the Long Mile Road. So that will be forming part of a traffic assessment plan, and we'll take into consideration at the same time. Thank you.
Your Worship, the Mayor.
Well, congratulations first, and we congratulated everybody last week when we heard about it, but you didn't mention in your presentation about the Sion reorientation. I think councillors are aware of it, but that's an incredibly exciting part also of the Long Mile development. Do you just want to cover that off a little bit?
So I suppose in the engagements we've had with Sion, what they're looking at doing is changing the entrance back on towards Long Mile, and really I suppose what that is it's linking back into the new innovation hub that they're creating as well. So parts of our engagement have really been about ensuring the sight lines back down towards that particular development are improved and enhanced through this as well. And through their own piece of work too, I suppose becoming a bit more public facing and providing those opportunities to host visitors as well.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. With regard to the question of the traffic, you're talking about the traffic coming up from the Tarawera roundabout to the turn-off of the Rocker Forest, but there's also an issue of cars coming the other way, bypassing the lights at Isles Road, going through Selwyn Road, causing a huge traffic flow coming down Tarawera Road. So you can have a huge number of vehicles at both sides, plus you've got issues with buses turning, because at the moment you need more turning spaces for buses.
Ross, would you like to make some comment?
Yeah, it's the same response as I gave earlier. Traffic modelling will dictate the design of the intersection.
So it's taken into account. Councillor Hunt?
Thank you, Michael. Great presentation. I just have a few questions about numbers and coach parking. The numbers for the information centre down there, do they include all those coaches that currently come through? And where exactly in the plan is the coach parking? That's one area. And also the numbers that are currently using the car park opposite the Black Cottage, what are they now? And I guess that's what you've based the 100 on. And how soon, what would trigger, how much overcrowding of that 100 car park would trigger the next development?
Good question.
Thank you for the question. So firstly, the numbers in terms of the 470,000 are based on the door counters to the current visitor site. There could be double counting there, but essentially that's the count that's taken directly from that door. The next question around car parking, was it on Long Mile Road? Or coach parking. So we're allowing for 10 to 11, and the location that we're thinking of is just down past the visitor centre. So in and around the area in terms of the concept design is where it is. Again, through the detailed design, it will determine whether that particular place is feasible, but conceptually that's where we're thinking. Current parking at the Black House area, I think on some days where we've gone out and visited, there's been up to 20 car parks, and we're talking about the area on the outside of the gate, I suppose, and some sort of in there too. But in terms of that 100 as a starting point, we're modelling that off Waipa, and the potential for looking at how congested that can get on busy weekends, and I suppose using this as a starting point in terms of the future car parking use. That'll be monitored, and I assume it'll be included as future LTPs or future sort of projects in terms of extending and formalising those car parks.
Councillor Kent.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just to follow up on the response from Stavros. If the detailed design is yet to come, this is just a concept, but a detailed design is yet to come with traffic assessments and so on, at what stage are the public who are putting up $7.5 million towards this project going to have a say and be consulted over the design?
You're talking about the design of the entranceway at Long Mile Road?
Of the whole project.
Oh, okay.
Because at this stage, it is just a concept. At what stage do we have something to put out to the public for submissions to get their approval to go ahead and spend $7.5 million of ratepayer money?
Executive Officer, I thought that had already been done.
That's correct. You've already, I think, answered the question that effectively the project was included as part of the long-term plan consultation, and so therefore when council signed off the long-term plan, the authority, if you like, was provided to continue with this project. I think what you're also though asking perhaps is is what level of engagement is going to occur with respect to some of the detailed design work, and it's something I'm sure Michael may be able to make mention of.
So what you're saying at this point is because it was signalled in the long-term plan that the project would be funded, the public no longer has a right to have a say as to how the money is spent? I find that unacceptable.
No, that's not what he's saying. I just have to bring you to order, Councillor, again. What he is saying is, and I'll rely on Mr. Hancock's reply, already we're getting people saying, well, at Lake Okaraka, this needs to be done, that needs to be done, and I think the answers that we've had, not only from Stavros on a traffic management point of view, but also what Michael is saying at Lake Okaraka at the Black House in answer to Councillor Hunt's question, is that things aren't set in concrete, that you are flexible in terms of what's going to come up and you're going to monitor things. So could you like to answer that, Michael, please? Councillor Kent needs an answer.
Cool, no problem. So in terms of the consultation process across these sites, we'll definitely be consulting directly with affected parties. Part of what we're doing, I suppose, through our governance is with the landowners themselves and with Mana Whenua as part of that process. But you definitely, so them and with affected parties and adjacent neighbours will be part of consultation.
But the general public and the ratepayers are affected parties too, because $7.5 million is coming out of their pockets. So when are they going to be consulted? Which is my original question.
Well, except on the detailed design.
Look, and it is one of these situations where consultation through the long-term plan is a statutory consultation process that actually does achieve approval for a project to proceed. That is actually the main engagement process as to whether or not there is a direction occurring or not, if you like. The next stage is actually the development of what will this precisely look like. What are the designs? Where will development occur, and so forth. Some of those projects or some of those aspects will be further consulted on, and particularly targeting the affected parties. Now, the affected parties, I might add, in these projects are very, very wide, and they range, as Michael said, from Mana Whenua through to the Trails Trust. There are many people involved in the use of this forest, in the ongoing development of it, and all of them will be included in the development of the detailed project. There's a different answer, though, with respect to roading design. Because some aspects of projects are by nature technical and just it's not feasible nor necessarily appropriate even to sometimes to consult on, for example, roading design, other than how it's actually going to influence or affect people who are actually using it, and that is actually part of it. But the design itself, it would be unusual to consult on.
Councillor?
Thank Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Portia and Michael. It brings me so much joy to see the wonderful work that comes from collaboration between Council and iwi. As the lead of Sustainable Living Portfolio, I do have a question though, and that's because we've pretty much covering the economic sides of this very well. But what I'm also interested in is the environmental impacts of this. So my question is, have we done an environmental impact analysis, or will we? Because I think that's very important to do at the start of a project, because bearing in mind people aren't the only users of the forest, and the people of now won't be the only users of the forest, and we've got to think long term. So as we start with this very ambitious and exciting project, just how are we ensuring that the environment won't have any adverse effects from the growth and the use of that forest?
I think through the design process, some of the key sort of values that guided the design process really was around environmental sustainability, and what that has done is come through and inform the design and I suppose the overall look and feel of the place as well, and taking into consideration affecting the environment as minimal as possible. In terms of the environmental impact assessment, I will make that recommendation to the project steering group for consideration, but we haven't done that yet, but I think it would be a good idea prior to beginning.
Councillor Okawa-Tate.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. And I know it was only last week on the 24th of September when this announcement was made, so I think it is, and we saw it in the newspaper, etc., but I think there is an opportunity for us to continue to inform the community that this is happening, that it is exciting, and they're not going to be left parked up on the sideline. So it really is quite important. Now, I did hear you say that there are, obviously, we want to grow the local economy through the projects, etc., and there will be some social outcomes as well. Kia ora to that. In your steering group, have you got somebody, or is there some working party set up to actually identify what those social outcomes are, and so we can work towards them at the same time? Because they're not an add-on that comes some way down the track, oh God, we've got a few jobs coming up, or whatever. I'm really concerned that there are pockets of our community that believe that there's an A team in Rotorua and a B team. And that they see this as, oh, this is for somebody else, it's not for us. And so there's got to be something in there for them, and it needs to be in the area of those social outcomes, jobs, training, all of those sort of things, the opportunity for their housing to be improved. So you really need to start nailing them down, what those outcomes are, so they can be part of the end result at some stage. But it needs to be actually worked on now too. So I'm just asking you, I really feel that we need to start thinking very clearly about what we're going to do and what we want to see there, and how we're going to work towards that in conjunction with these super developments, both of them. Yes, I'd like some korero around that, please.
Thank you, Councillor Tate. Mr. Hancock.
Kia ora. So in developing up the business case for this project too, in terms of the social outcomes, we definitely identified the amount of jobs, so completed through impact assessment done through this process, but also acknowledging, I think, with our partners and their own aspirations around work for their people, and how that factors through into training as well. So we've had initial discussions with some of the training providers around town, Rotorua, Rotorua, and the NZ Tourism School. And definitely with the idea, I suppose, of with these future jobs coming on board, how can we best support our community? This is probably a work stream that needs to, I suppose, acknowledge that we need to spend a bit more time on and really flesh out a bit more. But definitely it's quite fundamental, I suppose, in terms of how we maximise these jobs in order to ensure they stay local and add back towards our own community.
Michael, just a question from me before I ask the Mayor again. Were you mindful of the sport and recreation strategy plan in terms of excellent places to play, in terms of the business case? And when you did the business case, whilst you just acknowledged to Councillor Okawa-Tate that the social outcomes were highlighted in that report, were also the environmental aspects covered in that business case as well?
Yes, so we did touch on some of the environmental outcomes that could be expected through these business cases as well. Identified through the loop, I suppose, is the forest loops and the opportunities for commuting as being able to contribute to lowering carbon emissions, and other environmental outcomes that we can expect through, I suppose, creating the sense of place where in the forest itself. So it becomes a place where, I suppose, some of the feedback we'd got in terms of tourists not respecting the place itself, so creating the brand in terms of highlighting how important this is for our community and for mana whenua as well. And I suppose the example we thought of is in Japan. This stuff just doesn't happen. Everyone knows that when you go towards the forest, you respect the environment, and creating that sense of place as well.
Pick up on Councillor Rotorua Tate, the criteria for the Provincial Growth Fund has to be very strong, not just about economic growth, but the environmental impact and jobs. And the Minister's speech picked that up. You only saw a little bit of it. So that's when it goes to scrutiny about acceptance or not, whether it meets the criteria, that's a very, very detailed analysis of are these real or not. And Toi Ohomai is a very close partner now, aligning with what is the potential training needed to actually fulfil the jobs required once this work is done. So I think that was one of the most exciting aspects of it. It's not just about economic development, it's environmental outcomes as well as jobs. So that's if you don't reach that bar, it doesn't meet the criteria for funding support from the Crown.
Okay, well, before we move on to the lakefront development, thank you very much, Michael. Very thorough report. And thank you, councillors, for the level and the standard of the questions. Very searching indeed. But before we move on, I'll just ask the Chief Executive Officer who wants to make a couple of comments regarding this. Thank you, Your Worship.
Thank you, through the Chair. Look, I think one of the things that I would want to actually emphasise on these projects is that whilst Council is actually playing a key leadership role here, I don't think you could actually say that these are council projects. What you have in this particular one is a partnership with CNI Iwi. And as such, what we have is a partner that is very keen to drive both economic and social outcomes from their perspective. So they bring that focus to the table as well. An earlier comment I think Her Worship was actually raising was regards to, I think it was the lakefront, but I'm sure it'll come up again, what was the issue about cultural sensitivity. What I would say, the lakefront project yet again is actually a partnership project where mana whenua are actually at the table steering the direction and the nature of the project. This is not a council project where we're consulting with iwi as to how it should be. We are working alongside iwi to co-create a design and the development, and it's the same for this project. The other thing that I'd say is that this slide is somewhat misleading, and what it would lead you down to the conclusion of is that this whole project in terms of the forest is what you're going to see as an investment of $15 million. And that is the public investment, and that's albeit true. But the reality is that this project will have a far greater impact than $15 million. Already in the Waipā area, what you see is the result of public investment into infrastructure is a large private investment into the development of what is now a very central facility for mountain biking in this town. That's been driven mostly through private investment. Yes, we were there, and yes, we actually did do the car parks and the roads, but we weren't the party that invested in the facilities in that area. Now, this investment, I would suspect, and I'm looking at Michael and Portia for some guidance here, what you'll see is a multiplier here of some significance. We already see, for example, the tree walk. We know about Scion opening up its doorway to the public. We already know about some other businesses that are looking to establish themselves in the same area, and we already have interest and investment in what's this Bike Hub 2, around what's technically, I think, called uplift services. So what this public investment will in fact allow is a multiplier effect to occur with regards to investment. It's the way that economic development for a town actually works. It's not just about investing in roads and infrastructure. What this is about is enabling much broader investment to occur, which has a much greater multiplier effect than just the $15 million that occurs that's on the slide here.
Thank you for that, Mr. CEO. That sort of wraps it up in a nutshell. Portia, if you'd like to take us through the lakefront development. I know there's a lot of questions, but certainly if you'd like to make a presentation, that'd be great.
Morena tātou. So what I'm going to take you through today is just a few slides, some of the hero shots that we've got showing some of the collateral that we've got out there in the public. And I know consultation is at the front of your mind, so I'll take you through some of that detail as well. And then what I'll get to is how we're going to stage it, how we're going to roll this out, and over the next couple of years as well. So these are just some of the hero shots that are going to be out there in the public in the last week or so. Some of the really neat images that are coming through from our landscape architects. Just while I'm taking you through some of these, so the consultation around the lakefront has been since 2006. That's when the project started. So that's when we went through a full public consultation with the concept designs, and that was eventually included in the long-term plan of 2009. So it's been in 4 long-term plans since then. So consultation has occurred for quite some time, and that detail was what gave us the rigour to put into our application for the PGF. And then also during that time, since 2009, it's been in all of the CBD strategies as well. It's been in the urban design framework that was consulted on. And then last year it was also included in the spatial plan that we consulted on as well. So there has been a lot of depth in the consultation, not just with the public, but also directly with iwi and directly with adjacent stakeholders and those who are directly affected. So like I said, that the PGF application, for a grant of the biggest since it was announced, we had to do a lot of work to get it, to pull it together. But what we were able to do was to fall on all of that work that had been done before us, and all of that work over the last few years around consultation. So that gave us the depth, and we could bring that forward really quickly and put that application together. And that was the depth that the MB gave confidence in us to take this project forward. So last week with the announcement, the 19.9 million that was granted, which was the single biggest grant so far, just showing that confidence that MB has in us to partner with us, because we can meet all of those objectives of the PGF, that we can prove that with public investment comes the private investment to match up with it, that we have our iwi partners on board, that we can prove those economic and social outcomes, and that we have a project that is ready to go and that has a lot of detail behind it. So just in terms of the staging in the next couple of months and in the next couple of years, so what we've been working on, that grant that was given to us in June, what that enabled us to do was take the concept design forward into developed design of the entire site. And it also enabled us to undertake detailed design of stage 1. Stage 1 is this area here outside the spa and along the lake edge. So that's that area there and along the lake edge. So that's the work that has been undertaken at the moment to get that ready to go out to tender. We're out for expressions of interest at the moment for contractors for this site, just making sure that people are aware that this is a project that is coming up and will be ready fairly soon. Also, what we're working on at the moment down that end is the removal of the scout den, and we are going to go out to tender for its demolition, so that's looking like potentially this side of Christmas. Then also what the second stage is more around Memorial Drive and down to Tanako Street, down into around the outside. Now, what we're also doing at the moment is we're working through the consent process for stage one. Now, if that consent process starts to take us a lot longer than anticipated, what we're looking to do is actually bring stage one forward and stage two forward and undertake that stage instead. So there will be a bit of changing around that in the next few months, but we'll make sure that we're keeping in touch with all our stakeholders and making sure they're well informed. Stage three is the other end. So that's down around the sound shell area, down around where all the operators are. That's a lot more detail needs to be worked up down that end, a lot more consultation with those directly affected down that end. And this area, what you see now, may well change a little bit as we start to have those conversations with those operators, what their needs are. We're going to make sure we can make sure that business continuity can continue down there so that we're not affecting those businesses, that they can continue to operate. The other thing around the playground is we will make sure that there will always be a playground at the lakefront. So the playground, the new playground will be constructed next to the current playground. It will be all fenced up and there'll be a bit of excitement to see the playground being built. Yeah. And then as it's complete, the fences will come down and the fences will go around the current playground, working on its removal. So we'll always make sure we've got a playground there for our users.
In the village, great.
Yeah, so that's generally around the staging. The only other one is the sound shell. The sound shell, we are also going out to tender as well for its removal, and probably not during the summer months when it's not quite busy down there, but more starting in the new year around March or April, depending on what the tenders come back in at. So that concludes my presentation. I'm happy to take any
Also,
questions.
just one question already we've had signalled in that, and you've got that map up there which depicts on the left-hand side the building footprint of the Novotel and Ivers, and on the corner of Lake Road and Whakaue Street was signalled in the Daily Post that it's up for sale at the moment. Will you have an open door policy in terms of proposals that people want to bring to you in a confidential way before they look at putting an offer into purchase, and how receptive will we be to innovative ideas in terms of use of that corner, because it is now of high strategic value and strategic from an operational point of view for an operator, I mean private landowner and private operator. Strategically it's very, very crucial in terms of the overall partnering with what we're intending to do. So I just wondered how receptive you will be to those proposals.
So we're providing collateral to the real estate agent who's selling that site as well, and we'll also have that open door policy to work in collaboration to make that site really a great opportunity for someone to purchase it. Now, the Provincial Growth Fund, they're not just giving us funds to. It's not just, for them, their objectives aren't just about enhancing our lakefront. They want to see the jobs that come from it, and they want to see that private and iwi investment coming around the outside of the lakefront. And what we see there is the spa site, and Pukeroa has plans for the hotel site next to it. There are also other empty sites around the lakefront that are ready and that can have a lot of confidence with this announcement last week. So what part of our application was that the public realm is the new anchor tenant. It's not until we do that public investment will that private investment come alongside with us.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I've heard now that consultation that took place in 2006 for this project, which didn't exist at that point in time, the consultation that took place in 2006 was for a lakefront development, which, if my memory serves me correctly, when I finally found out bits of it, was for about $6.5 million. The so-called consultation that's taken place in the long-term plan is for a project budget of $20 million. It says so here on page, it hasn't, where are we? Page 31, it hasn't got a number on it. So I'm wondering when this is actually going to go out to public consultation to get their views on spending $40 million. Point of order.
Point of order. Councillor Donaldson?
Yes, just regarding Councillor Kent's continued questions regarding consultation.
Yes.
I sat in a container at the lakefront on numerous occasions during public engagement on the long-term plan with these concepts. Councillor Gould grabbed all the spots down at the forest and sat in a container down there over a 6-week period. There was extensive public consultation. Linmore School students went out and did projects on this, and Councillors Tapsell, her worship, and myself visited it, and they were displayed here in the foyer. All of that, Portia can correct me if I'm wrong, has been fed into the thinking around the designs that we've come for. We had cafe evenings in this very room.
Mr. Chairman,
a point of order.
So I think
I've heard the point of order, but consultation has been
I'm
held.
having this meeting, not you, Councillor Kent. Miss Councillor Donaldson, your point of order.
I think that the councillor is not acquainted with the level of engagement and consultation that went into the long-term plan and the business case, not to mention the economic impact assessment that was done on the forest.
Your point of order is valid. I mean, he's making a comment that he believes there has been a lack of consultation in terms of the concept plans. I don't think he's talking about the actual redevelopment of the lakefront, because that's been signalled, as Portia said, since 2006. What Councillor Kent is raising is, when are the public going to get the opportunity to actually see the detail? And I think that, is that your point?
Precisely that. What you consulted on was not what we're seeing now. What you consulted on was a plan that was drawn up by the council a few years ago that was included in the initial, this is the sort of thing we're going to do.
Okay.
That's not consultation with the public.
Can I respond, Mr. Chair? We also consulted on a spend, a level of spend.
Councillor Donaldson, you wanted to speak? Can speak now.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The consultation also was on the level of investment council would make into these transformational projects and approach the PGF for.
Mr. Chairman, that dollar value, it was stated here as being 20 million. We are now spending 40.
That is council's contribution, Councillor Kent. Portia.
That's not what it says in the long-term plan.
Through the chair, please. Portia, can you just elaborate for us? And we've got two councillors at opposite ends of the spectrum here. In your professional view, do you believe we have consulted in terms of the plan sufficient enough? And do you think, we've got out in the Gala area all the concept plans now for public, which has been displayed for the first time today, for the public to come in, and I understand it's also going to go to the library so people can see where the spend is and what the design concepts are. Can you elaborate on what level of consultation we're going to see from here? I think that's where Councillor Kent is coming from. He wants to know, when will the public get to see the actual fine detail? I mean, whether he wants fencing or posting or playgrounds or whatever, I don't think we need that level of detail, but certainly the overall consultation needs to be advised.
So consultation with those directly affected and key stakeholders is not finished. We will continue to do this through over the next couple of years and make sure that there will be direct consultation with those stakeholders to make sure that their needs are considered in the design. Because what you see here is developed design. Still, as you go through the process, there'll be a lot of little changes here and there to make sure people are happy with the design that, as they see it down there. For example, the operators, the lakefront operators, they are a group that we need to make sure that we're incorporating their needs into the design down the other end. So consultation on that front will definitely not, has not ended, yeah.
Thank you.
Also, I'm itching to have a say, because this was the biggest announcement that this council will have as a legacy into the future, and it was incredibly exciting, and I congratulate you. And I congratulate those that worked on this. I think the level of discomfort that I hear is about how do we bring the community with us as we go forward. And I just wondered, having sat through many of the little public meetings and the forums, and some who are very opposed to this didn't go to those, funnily enough. But how are we going to bring them with us? You talked about the library, you've got it here. Are we going to put a container down at the lakefront so that as this changes, we can actually catch perhaps some ideas that we haven't even thought of? Certainly not the Christmas tree and those little things, but the big things that might be very exciting for us. Are we going to be able to still incorporate those ideas?
I think we'll get the CEO. I think there's a little bit of, there's a political connotation there that I don't think that's really Portia and Michael's their thing, but certainly the CEO can have a say, because I think the question is very valid. How do we get buy-in from the public?
So before I just come back to that question, if I can, I'd just like to go back a little bit. And one of the things earlier on, I think prior to the development of the long-term plan, you would have actually engaged in workshops where we talked about some of the early work that was done for the lakefront development. That resulted in a detailed design piece, and we showed you that during the workshops. The consultation that was undertaken to get to that point was in fact about not a $6 million project, but what do people want to see on the lakefront? What activities are important? What are the key design aspects that need to be retained? Portia's already mentioned about a new playground. That playground design, the reason the playground is there was driven very much by the nature of the consultation. We heard over the LTP consultation, but in fact previously in the previous designs, it was also picked up strongly from the consultation processes that a lakefront playground is important, so therefore one is there. So this is actually a long-term project where since 2006 in multiple iterations, people have been asked through the various processes what's important about the lakefront, and indeed is the lakefront important at all. And overwhelmingly, since 2006, there's been a very strong response from the general public of Rotorua that this is an important project. That's been the feedback through the LTP processes. Now, that's the way that council works. When we talk about consultation, what we are talking about is engaging with people about what is important, and is this aspect of council's work, in this case the lakefront, is this an important focus for council to focus on going forward into the future? Should we develop a project around it? Should we put expenditure to it? In the LTP were some very early designs. You remember some of the pictures, and those were all taken from the 2006 work that was actually undertaken, and were put out there as an indicative ideas as to say, well, this is the sort of thing that could happen if council made a decision to go ahead with this project. So that was the LTP discussion. You heard the feedback from the general public as to what that was, and you heard it in various forums. As the Deputy Mayor has said, it was forums where people came in significant numbers into containers and said, this is what we would like, this is what's important, and all of that was captured. It was actually in the forums that were held in this room as well. So all of that work was captured and that fed in to this design work. Now going forward, what can you expect? Well, today is a good example of what you can expect. So today is being live streamed, it's been captured, there's a display in the Galleria, and the purpose of today is not just to ensure that you are up to date on where this project is up to, but to ensure that the general public are also aware of what's happening, what developments occurring, what are the initial design concepts that are being put out there. So you're seeing those up today and they're on the wall in the Galleria. As I say, this will be live streamed and is available for anyone to see at any point if they wish to avail themselves of what's happening. Now, of course, our team, as you know, are always open to suggestions. So people who wish to put ideas forward can do so. And in fact, that's exactly what's happening. We are having ideas put to us from members of the Ohunimutu area that say this is how we'd like it to link to us. We're getting it from the operators of the lakefront are saying this is how we'd like it to work for us. We're getting it from people who have land adjacent to the lakefront. This is what we will think is important, and that's all been incorporated. Remember again that this project is not just a council project, it's a partnership project. It's a partnership project with government, but also it's a partnership project around the table with a steering group that is chaired by Sir Bob Harvey and has representation from key groups, mana whenua groups, as a pivotal part to ensure that this development is not only sensitive to the needs of today, but it also gives due respect to the history of the legacies of the history of this very important place of Rotorua. So I think what you can be assured is that there is a significant amount of engagement that has occurred and is going to occur in an ongoing way. And part of the strategy group's approach is to run, as they have today, processes and information sessions which ensure people are up to date, they know what's happening, and also have the opportunity to put concepts forward.
Councillor.
Mr. Chairman, if I could just ask a question first in relation to the actual lake. Has there been the water currents, have they been tested to see which way they run? I'm asking this question, Mr. Chairman, because I'm seeing the pier that's sticking out into the lake and the one opposite the other way going to the left-hand side. The Rotorua stream is above it. Now the currents, as I know now, because it was tested by the Navy SEALs at the particular time to see what the currents would take place in a shallow piece of water. The current pier that we have got has created a problem of silting, in their opinion. What actually happens is that the water carries the flow of silt and sand with it. And when you have an obstruction in the actual current area, the water will drop its load. And consequently, we've had for a long time now, the dredging has to take place. Mr. Chairman, the evidence of that is actually, if you have a look at the Navy in Auckland, the piers are actually running parallel with the land and with the tide flow as well. If you have a look at the Auckland side where the wharves are, they're continually dredging because the piers, or the shipping lanes, the shipping wharves stick out into the actual current. This, Mr. Chairman, was related very similar to what happened in Tauranga, and I was privy to some information way back in 1953 through my father's books and Federated Farmers. They built the wharf parallel to the land. So when the tide came in and out, it actually got a flow and wasn't prohibited by regurgitation or breakdown of the actual flow. The container wharf in Tauranga is exactly the same thing. So the question I'm asking, Mr. Chairman, again, has there been a current or an up-to-date assessment of the currents of the lake, especially with relation to the Utahina and the amount of silt that it actually brings down? I'm against the actual pier sticking out into the lake. I don't like it. The rest of the concept I do like. I think it's a marvellous concept. But in saying that, Mr. Chairman, I've heard the same debate when we went through the airport. And I was promised by a certain person did an assessment financially that it would be $150 million benefit to Rotorua. And we never got there. You've got to spend money to make money. But what I would also like to see here is that, Portia, you've actually spoken about the benefits of leasing out the particular areas of land that the council owns, not Ngāti Whakaue, all the other hapus as well. But I'd like to see a financial return, actually what you're thinking the land is worth per square metre, so that we get some idea that you're going to lease this piece out or long-term grant it, and you know you're going to get X number of dollars coming back, and you can do your sums accordingly and say, hey, we believe that we've got a viable proposition. At the moment, I think we're a little bit, let's do it, let's get on with it, but financially I think we've got to be very, very cautious and put the business plan, and I think this is what my colleague beside me is actually trying to say, and Jeff, I agree with what you're saying as well, but we haven't had the dollars and cents at the moment. It'll come, and it's going to have to come before you start spending.
Thank you, Mr. Martin. I'll get Councillor Donaldson to answer the issue regarding the water flows. In terms of the business case, Portia, I understood all that was covered in that, but I'll get you to answer that. You'll come back to that, Jeff? Okay, Councillor Donaldson?
Yeah, through you, Mr. Chair. Just in respect of water flows, there is a recent study that was done by Professor David Hamilton and his team for the wastewater treatment plant upgrade project. So a dye was put into the Puarina and to see which way the water coming out of Puarina Bay circulates around the lake before it exits out through the Ohio Channel. And the answer is depends which way the wind's blowing. So the lake or the caldera is actually a bit like a whirlpool. The trace shows that if the wind is coming from the southwest, it goes out towards the airport past Henimar Point. If the wind is predominantly from the northeast, it drifts around the lakefront towards Kawaha Point. So it'll go both ways depending on which way the wind flows, and we had those presented to us, and they're with the technical team of council in terms of water current flows around the lakefront.
So the other thing I was going to say is that you'll also see a barge out on the lakefront area over the next period of time, and that's all about really understanding, you know, what is this place that we're actually looking to develop. So it's detailed investigation process that's actually being undergone at the moment. What I would say is that this is a concept plan. It's not a detailed plan at the moment, and the detailed plan will be informed by the sort of material that you're raising, and the Deputy Mayor has talked about the current flow mapping, which is also actually being done. This addresses the other concern, of course, that's been raised about weed as well. So all of these factors will need to be factored in as we're actually going into the detailed design phase. Look, you also raise a very good point, if I can touch on the airport. The difference between this project is that this is a partnership project. You've got council resources, but you've also got government resources that are being brought to bear on this. So what we've got is the ministry is has looked at and is looking at this project and its viability, and its viability at a range of different levels. The first is what can be done on the footprint itself. So what is able to be commercialised? What can that look like? Now we of course can't just decide that ourselves anyway. We have to do it in partnership because this is a gifted reserve. Secondly, we have looked at, the ministry is also looking at, what's going to happen around this area as a result of this investment. So to say that there's been a thorough investigation of this from a ministry point of view prior to any sign-off from government would be an understatement. You know, there's a significant time and process has gone into really understanding, have we got a project that is viable? And the answer in the announcement that was made last week is most definitely yes.
Stage, Councillor, Mr. Martin, I do intend to take a break for 5 minutes. Mr. Martin, you want to respond?
Mr. Chairman, I would just like to say from my point of view, and I don't represent the board, I like what you're doing. I think it's got huge potential, but financially it's got to stack up for the $20 million. Forget about the governments. If they see it will stack up, they're not using the taxpayers' money. This is ratepayers' money, the 20 million, and at some stage if it doesn't stack up, if you're a ratepayer, you've got to have to bail the council out. I like the concept.
I think though, Mr. Martin, that the questions from Councillor Tapsell, from Councillor Rotorua Tate, the social capital, the sustainability issues, mine from a sport and recreation point of view, Councillor Donaldson's from an economic development point of view, the social capital that the worship talked about, have all got to go into the mix, and I don't think you can just look at one aspect singularly. You've got to look at it as an overall, in a helicopter view of the financials. I agree, because there are commercial possibilities down there, which I think would have been included in the business case. Would you like to comment on that, Portia, before we have a break? Were those the potential of the commercial side of things covered in the business case and with iwi involvement?
Yes, most definitely included in the economic impact assessment. What came out of that was the potential for private and iwi investment of 260 million and a potential of 470 jobs for the site.